I woke up one morning to the sound of machinery rumbling right outside my house. When I looked out the window, I froze. There was a massive hole being dug directly in front of my driveway, orange cones, dirt flying everywhere, an excavator blocking the only way in or out. And the best part? It wasn't the city. It was the HOA. The people who were supposed to protect property values had decided to turn my front yard into a construction site. What they didn't know was that I'm a cop, and everything they did was on camera. I've lived in this neighborhood, Cedar Grove, for about 6 years. It's one of those picture-perfect suburban places, the kind that looks like it came straight off a real estate brochure, manicured lawns, white fences, polite smiles. But under that perfect surface, there's always someone like her. Karen Whitmore, the self-appointed queen of the HOA. Middle-aged blonde bob sunglasses big enough to hide behind, and that laminated HOA badge she wore like a sheriff's star. At first, I didn't have any issues. I paid my dues on time, kept my yard clean, waved at my neighbors, stayed out of trouble. I'm a police officer, so keeping peace is kind of my thing. But Karen, she didn't like people she couldn't control, especially people who knew the law better than she did. It started small. She left notes about my truck, said it was too large for the neighborhood aesthetic. Then she complained that my security cameras violated privacy guidelines. I ignored her. But the day she found out I was a cop, something changed. Suddenly, I was her new project. Her tone sharpened. Her eyes lingered too long when she passed by. It was like she needed to prove that even a police badge meant nothing in her neighborhood. Then came that Monday morning. I was getting ready for my shift, coffee in hand, when I noticed the flashing vests and equipment outside. No city trucks, no logos, just two guys digging right across my driveway. I stepped out and asked, "Hey fellas, what's going on?" One of them, looking uneasy, said, "Drainage. Upgrade, HOA orders." "HOA orders?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Got a permit for that?" He shrugged. "We just follow instructions." So I walked over to the HOA office, which was conveniently a few houses down. And there she was, Karen, standing outside with a clipboard like she'd been waiting for me. She smiled, that fake suburban grin that barely hid the satisfaction underneath. "Oh, Officer Reynolds, I see you've noticed our little improvement project." "Improvement," I said, pointing toward the crater in front of my driveway. "You're digging a hole where I park my truck." "Technically," she said, tilting her head, "it's HOA property. We have the right to make landscape improvements as we see fit." "Actually," I replied, keeping my tone calm, "that's public access. You can't block a homeowner's driveway without city approval." Her smile wavered for half a second, then snapped back like elastic. "Maybe if your truck didn't drag mud into the street, we wouldn't need to improve the drainage." And there it was, the real reason. She wanted to teach me a lesson. For the next few days, the digging continued. The hole got deeper. Mud piled up. I had to park down the street like a visitor in my own neighborhood. Every evening, Karen would stroll by with her clipboard, pretending to inspect the progress, tossing little comments my way. "Looks like you're learning to respect the rules now," she'd chirp. I wanted to yell, to confront her right there, but I didn't. I've dealt with armed criminals, drug busts gone sideways, domestic calls that could turn violent in a second. But there's something different, something infuriating about a power-hungry neighbor with nothing better to do. Still, I stayed calm. I smiled. And I planned. I adjusted my security cameras so they covered every angle: the workers, the street, the hole, even the HOA office in the background. I made sure the audio was crisp. I wasn't going to fight back with anger, I was going to use evidence. But the longer it went on, the more it got to me. My wife had to carry groceries halfway up the block. My kid couldn't ride his bike because of the debris. One night I sat at the kitchen table staring at the blinking red light on my camera monitor, and I started to doubt myself. Maybe this wasn't worth it. Maybe I should just let her have her little victory and move on. What kind of cop can't even protect his own driveway? That thought. It hit me harder than I expected. Because I'd seen bullies before at school, on the streets, even in uniform. They all thrived on making people feel powerless. And in that moment I realized if I gave up now, she'd win not just against me, but against anyone she decided to target next. So I made a few calls. Quietly. The kind of calls that get answers fast. By Thursday, things took a turn. The contractors, still following Karen's orders, had dug deep enough to hit something they shouldn't have: a water line. Suddenly there was a geyser shooting up from the street, flooding the hole, workers panicking, shovels clattering. I stepped outside and said, "You guys realize that's a city line, right?" One of them muttered. "We just did what the HOA told us." I smiled. Good to know. Within an hour, 2 city trucks rolled in, public works officials in bright orange gear. They started taking photos, checking the damage. One of them turned to me. "Who authorized this dig?" I didn't say a word. I just turned and pointed toward Karen, who had conveniently appeared pretending to supervise. The city foreman approached her. "Ma'am, do you have a permit for this work?" Karen's confident posture crumbled. It's a neighborhood improvement project. Nothing major." "Without a permit, you've just tampered with public infrastructure." Her face went pale. She started blaming the contractors, then me, then miscommunication. The city officials weren't buying any of it. They shut down the site immediately and said there'd be an investigation. I didn't have to say a word. I already had the footage, clear video timestamps, her giving orders. That evening around sunset, there was a knock on my door. I opened it, and there she was again, clipboard in hand, jaw tight, eyes blazing. "You didn't have to call the city," she snapped. "You could have talked to me first." "Talk," I said, keeping my tone even. "You dug a hole in front of my house without notice or permission." She took a step forward, her voice rising. "You think just because you're a cop you can threaten us?" I pointed to the camera above my door. "I didn't threaten anyone, but I did record everything. Audio, video, timestamps. I'll be sending it to the city along with your statements." Her eyes darted toward the camera, and for the first time since I'd met her, she didn't have a comeback. She just turned and walked off. The next week I got an official letter from the city. The HOA had violated multiple ordinances, unauthorized construction, obstruction of property, and damage to public utilities. The fines: over $12,000. Repairs, inspections, and an official written apology to every homeowner affected, especially me. And because Karen had personally signed the contractor forms, she was directly liable. When the next HOA meeting rolled around, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Karen sat there pale and quiet while the rest of the board shifted uncomfortably in their seats. One of them, a guy named Bill, who never really liked her, leaned toward me and whispered, "Did you really record everything?" I nodded. "Every second." He chuckled under his breath. "You might have just saved the rest of us." After that meeting, Karen's power evaporated. No one trusted her. No one backed her up. Within a month, she stepped down. No farewell speech, no email, no drama. She just disappeared from the board. Her replacement, Linda, a neighbor I actually got along with, showed up at my door the following week. She looked embarrassed. "Hey, Mark, I just wanted to say, we're sorry for all that nonsense. We found out Karen's been authorizing projects without approval for months." "I figured," I said with a shrug. "Oh, and the city wanted to commend you," she added. "Apparently you prevented a major liability issue." That part felt good, not because of the recognition, but because justice worked exactly the way it's supposed to. I didn't have to yell or threaten or stoop to her level. I just had to trust the system, document the truth, and stay patient. Now, months later, I still see Karen walking her dog sometimes. She crosses the street when she spots me. Doesn't wave, doesn't speak. And honestly, I prefer it that way. Because here's what I've learned: you don't need to fight fire with fire. Sometimes all it takes is patience, evidence, and a good camera. And if you've got a badge, well, that doesn't hurt either.